Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we are here with our season review episode for 2024. It's been a strange year. I think off the back of a prelim final in 2023, we're really filled with a lot of optimism heading into this season, and that was really backed up for quite some time by some good performances, leading us to sitting second on the ladder, sitting there nice and pretty and looking like a genuine premiership chance. Unfortunately, from that moment in the season, it basically all went wrong. The Blues scraped narrowly into finals. And then 2 years in a row, our season came to a halt by the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba. This time it was probably one of our worst showings over the past 2 years. And now we kind of find ourselves reflecting on the season, trying to figure out what went wrong, how it can be fixed for 2025. We've got lots to cover in this episode, including revisiting our predictions at the start of the year and, of course, our 2024 season awards. But firstly, Lockie, last time we spoke, we were both pretty negative and understandably down on Carlton from what we had just seen and really that poor end to the year. How have you been able to find any positivity since then? And how have you been reflecting on the season as a whole?
Yeah, no, always able to bounce back. It's been interesting. I'm not sure how you felt watching the finals the last couple of weeks without us involved. It's been hard for me to get super invested. As much as I've enjoyed it, there's, now that we're accustomed in a way to being hopefully a contending team, it makes it a bit tougher to watch. But yeah, this is final therapy for 2024. I'm keen to see where the emotions go.
Yeah, isn't that strange? I think supporters that are older than us that have actually seen success will probably have been like this forever, but so many seasons it gets to finals and you're almost trying to pick a somewhat team that you want to win the flag over the others, and you're watching it really intently for that, or hoping that someone maybe doesn't win the premiership is always the case. This season, it's really, I don't care. I don't care who it is, who's really in there.
Yep.
Yeah, watching the games, I'll find a team to go for and a team that I hope loses. But now that we're a genuine chance and in this conversation and playing finals football, I'm just more annoyed we're not there rather than trying to figure out who else I want to win the flag. Football doesn't matter if Carlton's not in there. And maybe that's a good thing that we've finally jumped to this point. But I think it's time to jump straight in to the season reflections, and the best jumping off point for that, Lockie, is to grade the season. We love the old school style grading system, the A+, the B-, all of that. So, Lockie, what did you grade the season and why?
Oh God, it's always a little bit of an arbitrary one. I mean, when I look back and we'll look at our predictions, I guess I thought that a 16 or 17 win top 4 season was what I was hoping and somewhat expecting. So anything less of that is not going to be a great grade. I think C is where I've landed.
Yeah, I think I'm very similar. And it's very interesting. We chucked it out to all you listeners on the socials, and it felt like the consensus was a tie between a D and a C. So is that a D+? Is that a C-? Splitting the difference on those two. I've gone sort of wrestled between the C and the C-. And often in this part of the year, I ask you the question, Lockie, was that season a failure? I feel like we're past just having that discussion and we can actually go into a little bit deeper. And that's probably where I've landed on maybe that C-, slightly more negative on it. In the pass mark felt like it was top 4. And whether that meant a prelim or not, that was the natural evolution from last season. We obviously finished 5th last year and had to win every single final to get to the prelim. You were hoping it was top 4, and maybe that's just, one win away from getting there. To then have the season we did, where we were sitting pretty in second, fall away, only just make the 8, and then just get embarrassed first week of finals. It's a failure of some sorts in that sense. There's enough that you can take out of it, hopefully, to try and have some level of optimism that we were still able to make finals, but we're kind of past that. We need to be better, and it's not a complete F. I think missing finals is where I would have had an F grade on this. The C-,
yep.
maybe stems from the good that was there, but we clearly need to be better than this going forward.
Of course. Yeah, it's a good chance to reflect on this and remember how high the highs were this season at a number of points. Early on and in the mid-season were both times where I was thinking, wow, we genuinely can go all the way here. So there has to be something said for that. But yeah, we're not going to accept this same season next year.
No, absolutely. So we can keep going through some of the fun parts of this, but while we are a little bit depressed at the start, maybe we tick this area off. So what kind of went wrong for you, Lockie, this season? What are those areas that we really just need to improve upon if we want to make 2025 our year? We were so close to getting that top 4 finish that we thought you need to get to win the flag. Didn't get that this year. So what do we need to do to fix that? What went wrong this season?
Yeah, I think if I try and take a step back and think about the times when things did go wrong, I guess in the moment we questioned whether we had been found out in the way that we did things and whether teams just understood the way to beat us. And I think now when you look back, that still rings true. So I think the systematic coaching elements would definitely be part of it. I was reading our notes from the practice game early in the season. Oh, the first practice game of the season. And what were we worried about? The ball movement, the long down the line, like the same issues that we're seeing now. So if we're seeing it, then the people, the coaches that we're playing against that are far smarter than us are definitely seeing that too and planning accordingly.
No, I definitely agree. The coaching's a big element. The system that we're building right now needs to evolve. The identity needs to evolve past pressure and contest. That's what every single club in the AFL is bringing week in, week out. And I know that there's obviously more to it. That clearly Vossi isn't just going to come out and say, this is the exact game plan, but there needs to be something more in every aspect. Ball movement, offensively, what we're doing inside 50, still there's issues in our forward line. Is it as simple as we're not getting the cohesion with the same players playing week in, week out? This season again, Zach Williams randomly gets thrown into the forward line. Then we've got injuries galore, rotating the small forwards. We kind of haven't locked down on 6 or 7 guys that you can depend on week in, week out. We saw how big Jack Martin was for us last season. He plays, 3 games this year, 2 he's subbed out of. I know it doesn't all come down to one player, but if we had another goal-scoring target, clearly that's an issue on the list. We don't have someone that can really replace him. But how much do those little elements hurt you? If we can finally get a full season of the forward line playing together. I mean, look at the back line. That's probably one of the most stable pieces in this team. And when the ball gets delivered in our back half, you kind of trust us to get it done and deal with it. Midfield, to a degree, when it is settled, performs well. But the forward line's a massive issue in that. But I think team defense and looking at how our defensive structures need to improve as well. We can't defend kick-ins yet again. It's just a massive issue. Are you seeing any other problems that we need to sort on top of those?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the consistency part. Like that's what Sayers called out in his email the other day. I mean, I guess we'll see if Cripper gets awarded his second Brownlow tomorrow. He's 29 years old and he's still required to carry the entire midfield at times. I think there's probably a piece there too, which probably there's the Kennedy discussion is off that, and is there other guys that we can bring into this midfield that's part of that? I think that's just it didn't seem to be as much of a problem last year, maybe, but has seemingly been a problem his whole career that he just has to put us on his shoulders too often.
And it's a nice thing to have, but I agree with you. We can't be depending on that week in, week out. I'd love for Paddy Cripps to not have a Brownlow year and we still, make top 4 and still successful, because it means other guys have lifted around him.
Exactly.
I don't want to just make excuses for everything, but I'm trying to almost play devil's advocate on what went wrong and almost look for the easiest answer for this. And you've got Sam Walsh misses the preseason with that sort of back injury. What does that do to how well he can play? Chera, injury interrupted season. Last year he was, before his first hamstring injury, leading our best and fairest, we were all saying just how good Chera was in that midfield. You lose that piece, a player that isn't your Cripps, Kennedy, Hewitt inside midfielder. Is that just the dynamic balance that we're missing? Potentially. But I agree with you. There needs to be something else in that midfield, whether it's structure, whether it's just personnel. We need to evolve from there, because they weren't defending stoppages well deep inside our back 50 and then trying to get the ball moving at stages. We were just absolutely nowhere. So I agree with you on that. I think ball movement that you touched on is just a clear issue. We can't move the ball when teams pen us in our defense. And then just, I think, coaching, preparation, team selection, all of these things have been issues for a while. We're not getting the most out of what we have week in, week out. Last year, we were praising those role players that came out of nowhere and kind of dragged us to finals in the first place. That kind of disappeared a lot this year, and all of that needs to be better next year. I don't want to be going into games thinking, what is the game plan? What have we tried to do? The opposition are going to play a certain way. Why does it look like we haven't planned for that? And then team selection-wise, weirdly, we got to a point this season where we were kind of just backing them in, whether we agreed with it on paper or not, because they were kind of proving that they had the right decision-making. Midway part of that season to the end, that really just dropped away. And every single time you and I and the rest of the fans saw the teams out on the Thursday night and went, hang on a minute, why has that guy been dropped? Why has this person been brought in? Why are they holding their spot? Questions are there. And then the performance is bad from those players on the weekend, and you start to just not have that trust and faith back in the football club. So I'm hoping all those things do improve. But let us know if you're watching this on YouTube in the comments. If you're listening in audio form, head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. What went wrong this year, and how do we improve them? What can we do to improve them? Let us know. I'm very interested to start the conversation with those. But maybe let's try and get a little bit of positivity into this episode. It's been a long year, so let's try and have some fun with it. Lockie, best game of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this was a popular choice with the listeners as well, but round 15 versus Geelong, watching a bit of that back during the week was just a glorious game for so many reasons. Like, we were tested by one of the best teams of the year, evidently. And that showed us up a couple of months earlier. It was a goal fest in the fourth quarter. Cowan got his first goal. There was the TDK, SDK stuff. And we were second on the ladder and flying.
No, best performance I've ever seen from a Carlton side. I agree with you. It was that Geelong win. So many amazing elements. And for the first time, it felt like our coaches outcoached the opposition, and one of the best in the business. There were just, you look at the Chin Cotter going on Tom Stewart, taking him out of the game, the way we moved the ball, the work rate, everything looked like it was the peak that Carlton can be. But at that moment of the season, it still felt like that was the beginning of it rather than our peak. And for that to have been our peak is quite disappointing to look back on. But still one of the best games, clearly, of the year. That was the consensus from the fans, from the listeners. They also said a bit of an honourable mention to the Port Adelaide win over at Adelaide Oval. Our second win there. First win against an actual Adelaide side. So good to see we've been able to tick that one off. I mean, it was a bruising affair, pretty close for most of it. And then a big, Paddy Cripps lift in that sort of last quarter, and all of a sudden, game's dead. What a win.
Yeah, that's a great one. I reckon the Essendon game the week later would be an honourable mention too, just because it was like both teams are flying at this stage. And, it was such an interesting period of time, an interesting month where we were just continually stamping ourselves as being a top four team.
Building the resume, and very, very much dropped away. But best moment of the season, Lockie. So this isn't a game. This is could be anything. Could be something not even game related. Maybe something amazing happened to one of the Carlton players throughout the week. Something funny. But what was your best moment of the season?
I didn't want to be cliche with these answers, but I'm sure that this would have been up there too. It had to be Harry's goal. in the first game. Being up there at the Gabba, going through already a roller coaster of emotions in that game, thinking, oh my God, 2024 is going to be a fucking disaster. To that comeback, to everything documented about Harry over the preseason and all of that, for him to have that moment, oh my God, the stress that I felt in my body, let alone what he must have been feeling out on the field.
No, mate. Agreed. That was mine. That was the listeners as well. I don't think there was any other moment that was even got a vote because it was so obviously going to be Harry to. Oh, that the whole preseason we were going, shit, is Harry Mackay's, is he done? We hope that he was able to turn it around. We believed he could, but you never know until you see it. To have that moment, first game in, all the pressure in the world to slot it. I mean, that built the confidence for him all season, and he was a tremendous performer for us. At 100% the moment of the season. Just disappointing that it was the first game of the year. Wish there was another moment somewhere else throughout the season. Maybe that's a little telling on just how our year went. But let's go negative, Lockie. Worst game or worst moment of the season. Now, this is one I didn't chuck out on the socials because I just didn't want to throw that negativity out there. But if you have an answer to that, if you haven't done it already to all of these, drop them in the YouTube comments. Let us know on the socials to all of it. But yeah, worst game/moment.
Now, this one, I feel like we could give 30 minutes to. Where do you... It's like, there's so many ways you can go with this. And we're probably just going to end up just having to say a few. I'm going to say the Collingwood game. The second Collingwood game. Yeah.
Is it just because it was Collingwood?
I think it was that moment, like the Hawthorn game was agony for an entire watch, whereas this one was just such a heartbreaking one single moment that just ruined me for that week, and just felt like such a crucial moment for the club.
Yeah, looking at it, you think, how many close games have we lost to those guys recently? Finally being able to get one back and take that away. Pendle's 400th. Yeah, not a good one. We didn't play well really until that last quarter as well. Bad game. My worst one is just the entire sunny afternoon against Hawthorn. Just, it was dreadful. Every single second of that game, they kicked the first two in about 3 seconds and you started to go, oh no, this does not look good. And it kind of showed everything bad that has happened this season happened in that one game. Defense across the board was awful. A team out coaching us. We weren't prepared. Then all the injuries hit and you have to sit there watching poor Jordan Boyd on one leg stand in the goal square trying to give us a rotation. You've just lost Charlie. You lose Harry at the end of it. Jack Martin's not only injured himself, but taken out Fogarty with it. Like, it just had every bad part of our season. Anything that could have gone wrong went wrong then. And it was just so awful having to sit there on such a lovely day being depressed. So, yeah, that was my worst game/moment for the season because it was 4 quarters of agony, like you said.
I know. It was the first game, like I said, I cannot remember how long, where I just could not even watch that whole fourth quarter because
we'd been bad at stages this season. Most of them, the margin has still been relatively close. This was the first real blowout for quite some time. It's been years since we've been absolutely belted like that. Next one could be interesting. You might go positive, you might go negative. I'm asking you the biggest surprise of the year.
You go first.
Okay. I will throw out the listeners' answer to this, which was pretty much, was worded in different ways, but it ended up being basically our fall off after being 11 wins, 4 losses in second. That was the biggest shock because we didn't think that it was going to happen, that we'd stumble our way into finals and get belted by Brisbane. I've got a couple that I can go with in this.
Go for it.
I'd say they're kind of the same thing in a way, but it's just that the lack of evolution this season. I'm talking game plan, same problems persisting, ball movement, defending kick-ins, And then just team selection still being an issue. I thought that by the end of this year, and I know, success and things like that aren't always linear. You're not going to just, because you made a prelim the season before, doesn't mean you're going to be in one next year or even progress further. But I just thought we'd have more answers to different things and maybe new problems would stem up. I didn't believe we were going to have the same things and be sitting here 1 year on going, I don't know how these things still get fixed. So that was probably my biggest surprise. I thought we'd improve in those areas at least.
Yeah, I guess so. Part of me wants to say that feels like wishful, optimistic thinking. It's so hard to balance that with, like I said, it's the same things over and over. It's the same things we saw in the preseason. It's the same things when we were winning. It's the same things when we were losing. So many of my thoughts when I was thinking about surprises were kind of player related, which we'll kind of get into later. So I think, I really, really, really did not see the drop off coming after the Geelong game. It just, if you told me that then we were going to plummet out of the 8, I would have been gobsmacked.
Yeah. I hate how many times during that run it was, here we go. This is it. The boys have figured it out. I have so much faith in them. Even if they lose one, I know they'll bounce back and get it done because I've done it all season. You lose to GWS and it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll bounce back. Lose to the Doggies. Don't worry about it. We'll bounce back. And it never happened, Lockie.
No, it didn't.
Still bewildered as to how we couldn't wrestle back something. And I know then injuries start to happen and that curtails more. It's sort of this cascading effect in what went wrong. But to just not be able to wrestle back anything. And even Vossi, I listened to a little bit of his interview that was released the other day. And he almost felt like he didn't understand what went wrong, talking a bit about the midfield and why we weren't able to defend stoppages when it was something that was working right. That doesn't fill me with confidence, knowing that he doesn't seem to know what is the issue. But yeah, just a very negative end to the year.
Yep, exactly right.
So let's get back to some positivity. Most improved player.
This is a good question.
This now to give you a couple of options because the listeners, the voting was very close. There was only one vote basically separating second and then the winner. In second place for the most improved was Lockie Cowan, and the winner of the most improved this year was Tom De Koning. So who have you given the most improved to and why?
Yeah, it's funny. It's most improved in sports around the league is always thought of very differently because this is two very different kinds of improvement. And I landed on TDK as well. I think as impressive as it was that we didn't have Cowan in our top 30 players at the start of the season, to then Vossi saying that he can't see him being out of the team is so impressive. But for TDK, he had a month where he was the best ruckman in the league. Yeah. One of the best players in the league.
Best player in the comp by those ratings.
Where did that come from? And you couldn't have told me a month before that was going to be coming. So I think if he can now do anything near that form for an entire season, then we are in an incredible position.
Yeah. I like that you can go different ways on answering this. I think last season, my prediction was Chera in saying, I think he can go from decent player to great player. And he kind of did that until the injury. This year, spoiler, my prediction was that De Koning was probably going to be the most improved. And it was for this reason, thinking a guy can go from being solid to best in the competition in his position. The injury derails the season near the end, but even on one leg, on a half of football coming on as the sub, completely changed the game for us against Brisbane. He's really shown just the step that he has taken this year and that he can be a massive force for us next season. It's no longer, is it Pitt or De Koning? It's who the hell is backing up Big King, because he is absolutely a star. Now, I'm glad we're aligned on that. And now we got some fun awards. We've got the big one, Lockie. This is what it's all about. All year, each game, we give our votes to try and get the Navy Blue Corner Blue Bagger Badge of Honor Award. Now, I have tallied up the votes for this, and I'll try to rattle off basically the top 10. There's been a few ties in this, so it starts with the top 9. In tied 9th spot with 10 votes, we have Elijah Hollins and Adam Sard. In 8th position on 13 votes, S. Walsh. In 7th on 14 votes, 1 vote between those two, it is G. Hewitt. In 6th position, a man who probably won't be playing for us next season, 16 votes, Matt Kennedy, had a great year for us. It is kind of wild to think that he could get moved on. We will have that discussion at the end of this episode and, of course, over the next few weeks with our list analysis and trade preview. But now we will go for the top 5, Lockie, because tied in 4th, we have on 23 votes. This is where the votes start to jump up. It gets tight. We have N. Newman and H. Mackay there sharing 4th. And the top 3, Lockie, in 3rd position on 24 votes, Jacob Wietering. And in 2nd place, because we know who's got number 1. This is almost the other winner, because on 61 votes, Paddy Cripps has got the win. So the non-Paddy Cripps Blue Bagger Badge of Honor Award on 27 votes in 2nd spot there is Tom De Koning. I guess, what do you make on... We changed our voting system this year.
Yes.
We went 3 for the best, 2 for the guy that went above his role, performed above what we expected, 1 for anyone you wanted. That's your top 10 and the order. What do you make of how that's transpired with the new voting system and, of course, the places and the winner of that award?
Yeah, I don't feel too bad about how that's landed. As you were reading them off, I'm comparing them to the coaches' votes from this season. I'm not sure if you did this exercise too. The biggest glaring thing is that Cripps is obviously well ahead of everybody on coaches' votes. Then Walsh is over double anybody else. So to have him below Kennedy, for example, on ours is a complete disconnect from the coaches' votes. We'll see how the BNF plays out. What's closer, our system or the coaches?
It's very interesting. I think with the way we vote, if we did like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Walshy'd probably get some votes in there. But when you look at every single game, I think rarely was he best on. And then given the 2 votes goes to someone that went above and beyond, I did think Walshy had a down year. He's probably just his own standards have made him harder to judge. And that was the interesting part of that 2-vote system. In once you give player 2 votes because they went above what you thought, trying to get them 2 again was almost more difficult, considering they've just lifted their expectation. And that has led to this other award, Lockie, that we actually mentioned either at the end of last year or at the start of this season. I found it in my notes somewhere. This is the Nick Newman Memorial Trophy, Lockie. This is the award for the underdog of the year, the guy that doesn't get the recognition he deserves. It felt like it's the guy that you've handed out all the awards, but this guy deserves an award kind of thing. And the way I decided to calculate this, because Lockie has no idea what is going on currently.
This is a surprise to me.
This is completely off the cuff. I have calculated this with the player who was awarded the most 2 votes from each game this season, because given our new voting system, that's rewarding that role player. And I think that's the best way to adjudicate the Nick Newman Memorial Trophy. And there's a few ties in this, Lockie, because tied in third place. Tied in 3rd place for 2024 is Tom De Koning and Lockie Cowan. Now, I thought Lockie Cowan could have been a bit higher on this, but that's 3rd place. And forget 2nd place, Lockie, because our inaugural Nick Newman Memorial Trophy for 2024 is a tie. Both of these players received the 2 votes 5 times this season. So not only did we reward them and said, this is your sort of ceiling, they did it again and again. Any guesses on who these 2 could be, Lockie?
TDK was going to be my guess. So, lay it on me.
The 2 winners of the Nick Newman Memorial Trophy are Elijah Hollins and Matt Kennedy for his
Matt
role, having to be
Kennedy.
the ruckman, the key forward, small
Wow.
forward, halfback, midfielder, doing everything. And I didn't know who was actually going to win this before I did the calculations. And there was a chance I was going to throw out that was going to be how I award this if it was given to someone I kind of didn't want. But it worked out really well because I thought it
You like
deserved
that?
to be someone like Holland or someone like Kennedy. The fact that both take it out is absolutely perfect for me. But let me know what you guys think. If you were to give a trophy to someone this season that isn't Paddy Cripps, that isn't the best of the best, but someone that just consistently went out there, played their role week in, week out, that maybe can't be the name in lights, let us know who you would gift the Nick Newman Memorial Trophy to, Lockie. And now let's have a little bit of a look at some key stats. We do this every year just to try and compare how things played out, not only and in the whole entire season, but, comparing from the midway point and also last season. So this is great. If you're on the YouTube, you can definitely see what is going on here. So looking at these, you've got the midway point of the season. Like, this is what I kind of want to compare it to, because we played 13 games. We were 9-4, percentage of 109.8, sitting in second position. And then, we did not do a lot since the midway point. Ended up with the 13 wins. Percentage jumped slightly to 110, and then position drops down to 8th. It is almost the complete reverse of what happened from the midway point last season to the end, which is really disappointing. But this is the nitty-gritty of it all here, Lockie, and trying to compare it. So the contested possessions is something that stayed the same, ranked first at both stages. Uncontested marks went down from 8th to 10th from midway point. Marks went down from 7th to 9th. Marks inside 50 from 9th to 12th. And this is a big stat that I'm hot on going into next season, because even last year, we were sitting at 6th at the midway point, went down to 10th. You'd think with the talent we have, Harry, Charlie, and plenty of other capable players down there, that we would be one of the best teams with marks inside 50s. Clearly, we're not. And that is a big area of how we need to move the football. And I think that stat will hopefully highlight that if we can fix the way we move the ball. Inside 50s dropped from 7th to 9th. Center clearances stayed at first. Stoppage clearances, again, this one actually went up. 7th to 5th, we went up in this stat. Tackles remained similar, was 3rd down to 4th. Tackles inside 50, 1st to 3rd. Rebound inside 50s, we were ranking 3rd at the halfway point, now down to 7th. What do you kind of make of, I guess, looking at what dropped away? Can you draw any conclusions from this? I know it's not the best, I guess, outlook on it, because this games are different. And this kind of just measures the totality, and you don't know, maybe there's a game that was a lot more contested. There was a game that was a lot of inside 50s. It might not mean anything, but just as a jumping off point for discussions, do you see any glaring issues of how our season played out?
I'm struggling with the 2024 season. Like, the thing that jumps out the most to me is even comparing the two seasons, 2024 and 2023, how much higher we are in both center and stoppage clearances. That's a massive jump in for both.
No, it definitely is. To be the number one sort of center clearance side, the number one contested size, clearly winning the ball isn't necessarily the issue. It's probably what we do after that. I think a lot of times this year, in that second half in particular, very fumbly on first possession. It wasn't a clean clearance. Even some of the center clearances, we weren't getting probably the distance on them, finding the right targets.
100%.
So it's maybe a positive that we're still able to find the ball, but what we're doing with it seems to be the issue. And tackles inside 50 is something that dropped off. We were so good at it all year, and that patch where we started to lose every single game, that worst patch near the end of the year, our tackles inside 50 numbers were abysmal through that stage. I'm surprised that we didn't drop down further. Maybe the start of the year kind of held us up there far too much. But just very, I think, disappointing in where that went. I'm trying to get the stats up now just to have a look at it for you. But yeah, like, we were at the start of the season, tackles inside 50 per game, we're hitting 15, 19, 24, 11. We're hitting those sort of 10 numbers. Plus, from that GWS game, it's 4, 5, 9, 7, 7, 2.
Crazy.
Just completely dropped off. Luckily, it came back West Coast and St Kilda 20 and 15. But for that real grim patch of football where we could not buy a win, we're meant to be a team that locks that ball into our inside 50s. Clearly, it just weren't able to do it. Yeah, so that's kind of some of the negatives on the stats and where we've kind of landed. But let's talk about some positives, Lockie, and what went right this season. Are there anything that maybe gives you a little bit of optimism for next season? What went right this year? What are your positives?
Well, this is a hard one for me to talk about, I feel like, because I am very optimistic for next season. In a weird way, and I mentioned this before we started, that it seems weird to me that it doesn't feel like a lot has actually changed yet in terms of just like the team, the side in general, where we were sitting at the start of the year, where I was extremely optimistic. Yes, we're another season in the books. Everyone's a year older and that kind of thing. But it's hard for me to nail specific positives in terms of what I've learned this season. But there isn't enough negative for me to say that I don't think that we can win the flag next year, which is what I truly believe.
I like that you're optimistic. I'm maybe not there just yet, but I'm trying to, and I'm trying to find those things because there's no fun being just negative on everything. I mean, just looking at those stats and what that kind of led to, I can see that we're clearly good enough in a lot of the key metrics that you want, but to a degree, it's top 8, but it's not top 4. That's probably the difference, and that kind of makes sense when you think about where we ended up this season. We need that next step where it could, and I think where my negativity stems from is that if we don't find that improvement, we're only going to regress. If every other team improves and we don't, we're not making the 8 next season. Now, I think we can improve, but it's about doing that because this season we didn't see that improvement for long enough. It was there for one half of the season, like it was there in the back half of 2023. So how do we ensure that we grow from it and we're not having the same negative questions at the end of each season? The frustrating part is the conversations are similar, but the tone is so different because of the end. Last year, we were positive flying and same issues, but it was, how good's this? We made a prelim. We haven't done this before. This season, it was, that's not good enough. So it's 1 year on. And I know now you start to look at the list and you go, okay, are we starting to age? Crippers, get into the 30s. You're looking at Charlie and Harry. They're not 24, 25 anymore. They are a few years onto that. So this is the window, and that's where it becomes scary. We've got the expectation. How do they deal with it? Clearly this year it wasn't ideal, but of course you can go on the next season and grow on from it. I think my positives are very player specific. And that probably is very telling on this season. I think my main one is just that Harry Mackay fixing his goal kicking and confidence issues. It's not even a discussion. It really wasn't a discussion since opening round happened. There was do it again. And I don't think we ever really touched on it after that point. We knew anytime Harry got the ball, it was pretty much just going to be a goal. There's always one little weird error in him where maybe he's running into an open goal and absolutely misses it. But for the most part, he's completely switched back on. And that was probably my biggest positive. Do you have any other player-related specifics?
And just on the Harry one, nobody is immune to that either. Like it felt like the media was treating him like the only player that can miss a goal. And we see it in almost every game. There's a ridiculous moment.
Danaher,
moments in both the finals.
Danaher and Hipwood are two that do it every single week, but the media would never get on their backs about them not being able to kick goals.
Exactly right. I mean, I think Cripper has to be one. Like, I think he is going to win the Brownlow tomorrow. It's insane. Like, I don't think did you have him as our John Nichols medalist prediction? Because I had
Walshy. I had Walshy. I was so hot on Walsh. It was after the Gary Ayres medal. If he was fit, all of a sudden gets the injury, and my $10 bet on Walshy winning the Brown, though. It's still annoyingly sitting in there, not able to even cash out of it and get a cent back. It's just sad. Like, give me something.
Sorry, mate.
I'll cash out for $0. Just I don't want to see it there anymore. Just the disappointment of what happened. But yeah, I mean, both of us didn't really predict Cripper to have. Like, let's be honest. This season has been better than the season he won a Brown,
though, really
or any
has.
season he's had.
It really has, which is crazy, just crazy. So, and that's why, it's funny when you talk about the age things being a worry, but then you also look at a lot of these players and it's like, well, there's not many that I'm expecting to actually get worse next year, hopefully.
Yes.
But that's an optimistic view of it too.
No, I like it. Another positive that I have is, Wiedering finally gets his All-Australian blazer.
Yeah,
that's something that for, I guess, the individual awards, he just deserved it. So it was nice to get that ticked off. Did you have any others to spitfire at me, Lockie?
No, that's all from me. Like, we mentioned TDK and Cowan, like they're positive stories from this season for moving forward.
Yeah, no, they were mine. Cowan, the rise of Lockie Cowan becoming best 22, DeConey becoming a top tier ruckman, and I'm definitely really clutching at straws trying to find some of these, but to see a bit of a glimpse, at least at the end of the season, of maybe what some of our youngsters are capable of. Cooper Lord, Jackson Binns, Ashton Moyer, not the ideal circumstance, but probably in particular, a guy like Jackson Binns, I started to be a bit down on throughout this season. VFL form wasn't amazing. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to be at the level and be a competent footballer, to be quite disrespectful. So to then see him straight into the team in a squad that wasn't amazing, be one of our better players and understand his strengths and kind of know the player a little bit more going into next season, that if there is an injury to Akers or, Ollie Hollands, you're kind of happy for Jackson Binns to come in and play a role. And then the other two, boy, I'm excited about Cooper Lord and Ashton Moyer. Very young, very inexperienced, but you definitely have seen the positives that these guys can bring, hopefully over the next few years. But this is the best part, Lockie. Let's revisit our predictions. And we normally don't get a lot of these right. We normally go way too hot with our hot takes. So let's jump in. I will go with one of mine that it didn't happen, but I feel almost justified in the idea behind it. You can be the judge. This is where we kind of roast each other. I said that Tom De Koning was going to make the All-Australian team. I tell you what, if he stays healthy, he's any chance to do it after that month of being the best rated player in the competition. What did you make of that prediction, Lockie?
Oh, sorry. Let me give you your flowers. You've just...
Was it any good?
Tell me how good I was with this. Yeah, no. If he, like we said before, if he'd put that little patch together for an entire season, he is the All-Australian ruckman.
Yeah. So I'm happy enough with that one. I think there's something to it. I didn't embarrass myself too much, but just wait on that one because I think I definitely have. You made an All-Australian bold prediction. Yours was that Blake Acres would make the All-Australian team. Just didn't have maybe as exciting a year as 2023. But, I mean, the All-Australians, they don't select a lot of wingers. I don't think anyone would say that Blake Acres had a bad year at all. What did you think of that one?
I still think, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I would say he's a top 3 or 4 wing in the league.
Agreed.
So, take that for what you will. I feel okay about that prediction. He still had like you said, maybe not as flashy a season, but what did he play? He only missed one game for the entire season. He's one of our most reliable players.
No, definitely agree. I went big on Jordan Boyd. I said that he would become a lock in our best 22 and he will become one of our most important defenders with his ball use and kicking. I would like to say, though, that Lockie then bullied me, listening to this back, to try and remember what they all were. You bullied me saying that wasn't hot enough because Boyd is a lock already. And I quote, "That's like saying Adam Sard will be a good player." So we both kind of went very bullish on Jordan Boyd and that prediction. Unfortunately, we're at a point where we kind of don't know if he is best 22 at the end of the season. What are you kind of made of Jordan Boyd and us both kind of going very hot on him pre-season?
I think I was fired up because as I was looking back, you didn't even have him best 22 to start the season, but you said that he was going to make this historic rise. So I think I was fired up in that regard. Yeah, it's a weird one, but we still had Williams as a defender then as well. We're going to be bringing in any halfbacks, maybe.
Who knows?
It's hard to
Maybe.
know.
It is.
We still love Boydie, of course.
Yeah, his ball use is there. I think the type of player Jordan Boyd is meant to be is still something we miss. Whether it's going to be him or not remains to be seen. But I think there is still a spot in our defense for really good ball use and someone wanting to tuck the ball under the arm and go for a 10, 15 meter dash. Now, this is one that I love to see from you, Lockie. You said that Carlton would win opening round against Brisbane. Now, I did bully you with this one. I said that's not hot enough. I wanted you to go bolder. I wanted you to say that we're going to... Because winning one game is like, what does that even mean? Oh, wow, we beat Brisbane.
We were
great. Not bold enough. I wanted you to go bigger. I wanted you to go and commit to a 5-0 start for the season. I believe we went 4-0. So we got very, very close before it unraveled against Adelaide. But I mean, looking back
count
now,
the bye as well.
Well done on getting that prediction right because we don't often get them. And I mean, we're all very skeptical. So take me through all the reasonings behind that one.
Yeah, I just remember I wrote down in my notes it would be the perfect scene for revenge, which is ironic because the elimination final also was going to be the perfect scene for revenge. We did one of the two.
Yes. Absolutely. One of mine, I'll save my worst one for last, but this one, probably I worded it wrong for the best to get it correct, but I like the sentiment behind it. I said by season's end, Pito won't be the best partner for De Koning and Carlton fans will be wanting a different second ruck, that being either Lemmy or O'Keefe to partner with De Koning. I thought that De Koning would rise and we're going to need someone to be in that forward line, be a bit more dynamic. Well, it doesn't look like it's Lemmy or O'Keefe just yet, but I think there's an element to that kind of played out to be true. It's been one of the longest running discussions of the podcast. Who's the best ruckman? Should we play both of them together? Have you become any clearer on the ruck situation?
Oh my God. Have I become any clearer on the ruck situation? Nope. I'm not even going to try and justify that.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that this could play out.
Yeah. See, I think
Why did Pitt have to turn into bloody Charlie Curnow in the fourth quarter of the final and just start banging them?
That's almost one of the best moments of hockey when we were just dog shit and then Pito's banging him in from 40 out. Oh, we love.
I'll just mark it all over the ground and
just becoming prime bloody Wayne Carey in the forward line. Like, what is going on? But I think there's more clarity on this for me, at least. I don't really want to see Pito be the second ruck on field. And I don't have clarity on who that is and what's best. Is it Silvani? Is it someone else? Do we have to bring in another player that can play that role? Is it Harry, but we've got another Kemp in the forward line, or there's enough structure to allow Harry more minutes in there? I don't know. But the more I've seen in this second half of the year, Pitt out there, I just don't think it's the right combination. If De Koning's taking over as that number one mantle, I'm not sure our backup can be a guy whose only position on the field is ruck or bench.
I think be hard. No, I think that's pretty sensible.
Now, one of yours, we don't know yet. So we might even park this one a little bit and try to get back to it. You'll need to remind me, Lockie, because it's your prediction. So I won't remember at all because I don't want to give you credit. This was that Ollie Hollands will be a top 10 in our best and fairest, a top 10 finish for Ollie. Gee, that is actually looking really good, to be honest. Mr. Consistent all year. Played a few different roles. Decent shot.
Interesting one, because I had him as my most improved pick. And I remember I was looking at that 14 touches a game that he had last year and thinking, gee, that feels low. I feel like that could go up a lot. Runs it back with the exact same average of disposals in a game. So he probably didn't improve to the ability or to the level that I thought he would, but I think you'll be around it with the top 10. Again, only missing one game.
Yeah, I think his second half of the season, he really built into it, and what we can see from him going forward. When everything was going wrong and most of our players were out of form, I thought he really lifted, moving
Yep.
to a little bit of a halfback role, a bit of a different look. And yeah, just I love that he's the guy that wants to make something happen, whether he turns it over or not. He takes the right
Yeah.
option. It's not going
Agree.
inside that 45 and just hoping. It's like, no, there was a player there. Sometimes the execution lacks. I'd just much rather you go the kick if it's on, compared to maybe some of the others just going that long down the line option. Now, again, I'm saving mine just a little bit because there was one last prediction from yourself that you kind of took off your own run sheet, but I forced you into saying it, Lockie. This was because you weren't fully confident, but I said, let's just put it out there in the universe and see what happens. You said by year's end, it will be less clear than it was at the start of the season as to the small forward hierarchy. You couldn't have been more spot on. You've absolutely nailed that. That should have been your prediction. The issue is, Lockie, let's go to my big, bold prediction. And this is the most crazy one that I have had. I went too specific. I went too big. I said that Jack Martin, Jesse Motlop, and Orazio Fantasia would combine to kick 84 goals this season. 84 from Jack Martin, Motlop, and Fantasia. Now, Lockie, this not only did it not eventuate from these three. I'd love to get a guess from you. How many goals do you think those three combined kicked? Now, don't have a look. I wanted 84. I reckon those three made. So,
sorry, Martin, Motlop, and Fantasia.
Yeah. I wanted 84 apparently. Jesus Christ, what was I on?
I'm going to guess 20.
18. So not far off. Again, we're going too big on him. Now, Lockie, not only did that not happen clearly, but, because I said those three would get 84. Now, I've tallied up the goals of every single one of our small forwards, and I'll name them right now. So let me know what you think. This is Owies, Zach Williams, Fantasia, Fogarty, Durden, Motlop, and Martin. All of them together still didn't get 84 goals between them. They ended up kicking 82. It's only if you sneak Ashton Moyer into this that you can get to 84. So all of our small, medium forwards combined to kick 84 goals. I just couldn't have been more wrong. Right. Now, to justify it a little bit, Motlop only played 7 games. Fantasia played 15, one as the starting subbed out 4 times. So he ends up playing 10 games, really. Martin plays 1 full game, 2 sub-affected games. I think my logic at the time was somewhat sound. I said if Martin plays, now this is the issue though. I said if Martin plays 18 games, he'll kick 17 goals. I think if he plays, let me try and look at this. If he plays 18 games, yes. Right. This looks all right. Kicked 3 and 3 basically, and I wanted him to kick 17. That means there's a chance to kick 20 if he played 10 games. So
totally,
the logic was sound as far as what Martin could produce. My faith in him actually being fit is insane. And then looking at Fantasia, I thought he could kick 25 if he got those 15 games, because the last time he played 15 games, kicked 28. Just, doesn't really happen. We didn't see the best out of him in that small forward role. And then Motlop, probably the one I was most bullish on heading into the season, kicked 24 goals in 2023. I wanted him to play 20 games, think he could take a step up, get to 31. Injuries form means it doesn't happen. I will say, though, Lockie, you agreed with my logic. You thought it was sound at the time. Didn't think it was too much of a hot take. How did I get this one so wrong?
Oh, I'm just an enabler at heart, mate. I'm always going to support you. But no, the logic doesn't sound that bad.
It's bad.
No, the logic isn't that bad if the health was there. We both did not have Owies as best 22, I believe. No, I had Owies best 22, but we agreed that he was altogether was probably more of a depth player. And he comes up and steals all the goals from your boys.
He does. Selfish. And then Williams moves into the forward line, takes 15 goals off the other fellas.
You couldn't have seen that coming.
No. And maybe that's the thing. If you get rid of Owies and Williams, bring in my men, they're kicking more than that
I'm
combined.
saying.
They're getting back to the 84. Might run that back next season with Moya in Martin's place.
God.
Who knows? But clearly, I was way too optimistic at the start of the season. You might not get something that bold, but that's what the hot takes are for, Lockie. Make a bit of a fool of yourself, throw something out there, and hope that it comes off. Didn't in that stage, but
you have glossed over me nailing my hot take in regarding the small forwards, though, which I'm sure
you did, yes,
leads into other things. But that was a bit hot.
That was very
hot.
You
and I were very like Motlop's the top of the hierarchy. Fantasia's then the next guy in, and
I'd say my disappointment is that you didn't put it on the table.
No, I didn't.
You took it off your run sheet. I had to coerce it out of you, but I agree. We're at this point where I was trying to do a bit of a depth chart to prepare for our list analysis episode that'll be out next week. So if you want the list analysis, the trade stuff, stick around. It'll be out in the next few weeks. I still don't know what that forward line is like. Is Zach Williams in our best 22 as a forward? Is he someone that we can depend on? Everyone is so even because everything is almost potential. At their best, they're this, but they're not consistent. We've often mentioned what's the right mix, how many smalls, how many medium size. Are we going to get someone else in that plays more of a high half forward role? Does Cottrell come back into the forward line? That takes a spot out. The hierarchy is almost more confusing. And that's exactly what you said. It'll be less clear. And you've absolutely nailed it. But did we nail the ones to watch? Lockie, I'll go through your three. You had Ashton Moya, Orazio Fantasia, and Zach Williams. Take me through your thinking at the time and what you make of their 2024 seasons.
Well, I guess the Moya one kind of links into our last point. Felt like he could come in and be that difference maker in the team. And maybe a few more injuries earlier in the season, and we might have seen him. But I'm happy to put that one down as a bit of a miss. Raz is such an interesting one. He definitely... I don't think we really knew what to expect. We knew that the ceiling could be so high if he hits that.
Yeah.
And he just didn't get anywhere near that. And was seemingly just being like, is he the guy that you look at the most as maybe being selected when we didn't feel like it was justified in the community at large?
Is the poster boy for that for sure.
Yeah. So that was a disappointing one. And then Williams, again, I don't know what we were expecting to get out of him this year. And I mean, to lead into your question before, I do think that it's more likely that we see him as a forward next year than as a defender.
I agree.
So yeah, it's a weird narrative for those three.
Yeah, Moya probably just a bit early, but we're all very excited what he can produce. We all just wanted to believe with Fantasia, bringing in a small forward that had actually produced it at some stage. There was still a glaring question mark on whether he could do it still, but at least compared to the other players that we had on our list, he has kicked goals before. So that was something to be very positive on, and teaching the rest didn't sort of pan out that way. And maybe we are wearing it a little bit now, potentially losing Owies for that list spot. And then Zach Williams, I mean, coming back off the ACL, it was just what is this guy going to be? We're excited to see adding in a best 22 player into the team that wasn't there for one of the best seasons that we've seen as Carlton supporters. There was clear excitement about that. Didn't pan out how we wanted to, but maybe there is a really good forward. He was actually rated as the 8th best forward in the AFL from the small sample size that we saw. Now, what can you do with a preseason and maybe a different fitness regime? Who knows?
Yes.
I think there's reason to be excited about Zach Williams again next year. My three probably didn't pan out well. I had Matty Cottrell, Jordan Boyd, and Elijah Hollins. I'd say Elijah was the one to watch, played some really good football. Boyd just didn't really do a lot throughout the whole season, then gets injured. And then Matty Cottrell, another who had a big end to last season, copped the injury, and just never really got back to that form. Thrown in way too early off no football, and then gets injured again to finish the year. Real sad ones to watch on my end.
Unfortunately so. Yeah, we had to miss something.
Exactly. Now, the under the pump is always one of
Yes.
weirdly my favorite things. It's not meaning to be negative. It's almost a pump up in saying that these guys have something to prove. So let's put it on the table and hope at the end of the season, all three of these have completely, won everyone over and had a great season. Lockie, your three, Jack Martin, George Hewitt, and you basically just said all the small forwards is your sort of under the pump there.
Yeah.
How's that played out? Are any of them still under the pump?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about how they've all played out. Hewitt was certainly more of that pump up kind of, Kennedy wants that inside mid spot. You are going to have to earn it. And evidently he did. So I feel good about that. Martin, we all know how that's played out. And then, the smalls, we've talked about it a bit, but I guess they continue to be under the pump. It's interesting because I think a bit of a weird phenomenon that I sometimes fall into is when thinking about ages of players. I think of some players as not so young as they are and vice versa. Like I find myself being hard on guys like Motlop and Durden until I just think about how young they are compared to other guys on the list. So I want to give them, I don't necessarily think they're under the pump, but they kind of are still.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. No one has cemented their spot in that forward line. The one that probably has looks like he's going to get shipped off, and that adds to the more confusion.
Yeah.
That's one you can probably just run back for next season. I agree.
Probably will.
With it, my under the pump, Jack Carroll. It was knowing he's out of contract at the end of this season. It was a real, maybe like Brody Kemp the season before, a show me what you are. Show me what position you're best at. Show me your strengths. I want to know by the end of the year if you've got that little spark, that little something to get excited about, that you don't have to be best 22 by the end of the season, but enough that I think, okay, one more year and here's the player. Unfortunately, it's kind of in the same spot. He showed a little bit. It was our
remember after opening round? We were like,
true.
Oh, you're flying.
Oh, that running left foot shot at goal was beautiful. And he could be moved on at the end of this season. There's rumors that he could be traded over to WA. Just, what is he? He's our most used starting sub this season. So clearly there was they liked a bit of versatility, but just has not been able to really nail down a spot in this team or really a role. So he's definitely still under the pump. Mark Pitternet, thought it was going to be a big year for De Koning, so that meant that he needed to show me something. He hasn't. He's still under the pump, really. And then the last one, he's still kind of under the pump, but he shouldn't be for the reasons I said he would be. That's Matt Owies. I thought with the others around him potentially rising, Jack Martin, Motlop, Fantasia comes in, you have the stealing of what you think Durden could be. Matt Owies, what are you? Evidently, he's our best small forward, kicks the most goals out of all of them. And at this stage, he's been asked to have a look at his options and see if maybe we can utilize him in a trade with someone else.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think of Matty Owies, and is he still technically under the pump?
I so struggle to have an opinion on him. You look at the raw numbers of what he was able to do this year, and missing one game. Like, it's funny how we talk about or I guess the club has spoken about the consistency thing being that part that we're missing. And then Kennedy and Owies are two of our 5 most resilient players for the whole season. So, a bit of a weird equation.
Read into that what you will. Now we've got ladder position. We can speed through a couple of these. We were very in sync on this run home from here on out. We both said 3rd. Didn't get there. It was 8th. Very sad. Most improved, I said De Koning. So big win for me. You said Ollie Hollands. Still a decent shout, though. I'd like that one. Who knows? Maybe next year he goes from, like, that De Koning, that decent player to holy shit, he's now, in our top 10. But who knows? Maybe he's a top 10. In the BNF, we had the non-key forward leading goal kicker. Both excited about Jesse Motlop. It ended up being Matt Owies instead. John Nichols, medalist. Well, we're both wrong. We both said Sammy Welsh. It's going to be Paddy Cripps. Well done, Cripper. Premiership, though. We're still alive. We both said Brisbane. There's a shout now. Them v Sydney. So who knows? Gotta say, big shout out on the wooden spoon. We both said West Coast. However, I then said anyone that you think could be a wild card to finish on the bottom. You said Richmond. Massive kudos to you. Absolutely nailed that one. Coleman medalist. You said Charlie Curnow. Obviously, it wasn't. I said it was Ben King. It obviously wasn't, but I was lambasted for this. I said you were going incredibly harsh on me, saying, what a ridiculous thing. Well, he finished fourth, I have to say.
Yeah.
Now, I was bullish thinking Gold Coast would make the 8. If they do, does he get a little bit closer? Maybe. So I want some level of vindication for Ben King being in the conversation for the Coleman medal.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yep. The numbers are there. The numbers are there.
Wasn't too bad a pick. Brownlow medalist. Again, we don't know, but I'm wrong. I said Walshy. You could be right. Let's hope that's not the case because you said Nick Dacos. We don't want that to happen. We want it to be Cripper. But let us know what you guys thought. You know, what were some of your predictions at the start of the year? Did any come true? If they didn't, let us know as well. We've named and shamed ours, so we want to know what we were all delusional on at the start of the year, and maybe 2025 is when it can all come true. But Lockie, let's move our attention towards the Grill the Corner, the listener questions. Chuck them out on the socials at Navy Blue Corner, on Twitter, on Instagram. What have the people asked this week?
All right, yes. I'll head over to Twitter first, and we've got a combination of different sorts of questions here. So let's start with this one from Jess. They're thinking we should upgrade Liam McMahon to the senior list. Do you have any thoughts on a move like that?
Yeah, obviously we're going to cover the list, as I said multiple times, and the trades and all of that in more detail in the next 2 weeks, because I know that's already where everyone's mind is headed towards. So this end of the episode is going to be a bit of a sample towards that. Look, I like the idea of it. I think we do need some level of depth in that forward line. Clearly at VFL level, he's shown that he's at least right now better than Harry Lemmy. We just probably don't have the list spot, unfortunately, which I'll get to next week talking about where we sit, because after the delistings, if we re-sign everyone, that's, you know, you're always Jack Carroll and I think Matt Carroll and who's the other one? Sam Durden. If we relist all them, bring in the Camporelli twins, bring in Matt Duffy, bring in pick 11, we can't bring in Nick Haynes. We can't actually bring in anyone else during the trade period. That's how tight it is. So I guess if you're moving potential, you know, 3 more spots there with Kennedy, Owies and Young, is there room for him? I'd maybe have some other higher priorities personally, but if list spots weren't an option, I'd definitely say yes.
Yeah, I like that. We've got a couple here on kind of club personnel, which I feel like is often a topic that you're more passionate on than me. So I'm keen to hear your thoughts on these. So from Ian, great name, should Brad Lloyd go? And then from Kaz, a bit of a different one. Out of 10, how would you rate Andrew Russell's tenure at the club? So a bit on...
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think Andrew Russell, I'm excited that we're just going to get someone new in. Therefore, this discussion of is it all his fault or not, we don't really have to have that discussion anymore. And we kind of maybe will be able to conclusively say whether it was his fault or whether these players are just broken. He's definitely helped by Martin, Marchbank, Cunningham not going to be at the club anymore. That was probably most of the time that Russell had to spend dealing with that lot in the rehabilitation room. Look, it's probably, he fixes Charlie. That's really good.
Yep.
Apart from that, I don't know how many other success stories there's been. I mean, he's been able to help get, you know, a Doherty back quite quick a few times. But then you think about all the other issues that have come up. Chera's hamstring in the management. Walsh is back. De Koning's had some stress issues.
Cripps.
Cottrell's had some stress issues. Cripps looks to be moving the best. Cripps is moving the best we've seen. It probably has to be like a 3 out of 10, I would say. Just outweighed with the negatives, not being able to get Martin, Marchbank, Cunningham right, and then just all the other plethora of issues and maybe mismanagements. But maybe it goes higher if Rob Innes has the exact same issues and you start to go, I don't think it's personnel. Brad Lloyd, I'm surprised there hasn't been any chatter just yet of any movement in the footy department, whether that's assistant coaches or not, even if they're contracted. I mean, there needs to be some level of improvement for us. I don't think we can run it back with the same group. And Brad Lloyd is just the surprising one. I don't necessarily have the clear judgment in knowing how good he is at his job. I don't know exactly what he does. We don't see it. We don't hear from him. But where I probably sit on this is similar where I did eventually on Andrew Russell, which is if we're not getting the results everywhere else, if there's still issues with match selection, with dealing with the high performance, coaching issues continually being the same problem, and his kind of job is to oversee the whole footy department and make sure the right people are in the right roles, hiring the right people, giving them the platform to be the best, and we're still not that. He's been at the club for a very long time. I think we need to move him on and bring in a fresh set of eyes. And my biggest worry, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but at the end of next year, no more Sayers, no more Cook. Vossi, I think, is out of contract potentially at the end of next season. You've also then got, Brad Lloyd as well. If we're cleaning house and we're moving on all of that, that's probably not the best way to be a stable football club. So should you be preemptive and move on Brad Lloyd and get a replacement in, knowing that you're about to have to replace all the potentially some of the others at the end of the year, and hopefully not a guy like Michael Voss? It just makes me more worried that the end of next year, there's going to be more upheaval everywhere. So I'd be shocked if they retain Brad Lloyd, because we probably haven't seen the best of the footy department, and it's his job to make sure it runs smoothly.
No, I think that's really well said and thought through. Let's wrap up the segment with one more, which was kind of a bit of give the people a bit of a taster for the next step. So in the upcoming trade and draft, what areas of the ground do we need to reinforce / improve?
I love this, Lockie. This is my bread and butter.
For the typewriter.
And I'm very excited to launch into all of this. I'm going to answer this question without list sizes in my thinking. Let's throw that away. If we could just blank slate, bring in what we needed, I would say we need another key defender to partner with Jacob Wiedering, someone who's ready now to take over that mantle. We need something else in that back half. I think it's pace and foot skills. We don't have a lot of run and gun players. Saad getting some injuries. He's aging. You look at the profile of everyone else, they're all kind of the same player. I think we just need a different type of player across the field, because the list looks very samey. I look at the midfield. We need a dynamic player. We need someone with a bit of run, just something that isn't accumulator, Walsh and Chera, or inside mid. Need just something to add to that.
Yes.
What are we doing with the second ruck? I don't know. I don't know if you can necessarily bring that in. I'd love some key forward depth. And then I think we just need another goal-scoring small forward. Who is that? Is that on the list? Is that literally Jesse Motlop and Corey Durden fit for a whole season? Is it Ashton Moyer fit and developed another season? Maybe. But those would probably be the areas that I would highlight off the cuff. Where are you kind of seeing some of the issues right now?
Oh, no, you've nailed it. You've nailed it.
Speed and ball use, please.
This is the Grill Ian segment. But yeah, hopefully it comes.
Absolutely. So the last thing, again, bit of a teaser for the list analysis, the trades, because so much changes very quickly. And I think this is the thing everyone wants to talk about the most. So just in case all these players that are linked with moves away or moves to us within the next 2 days, all of them are ruled out, not happening. Let's have a chat about them. Delistings. Let's go through those quickly. Jack Martin, Caleb Marchbank, David Cunningham, Dom. I still never learned how to pronounce your last name. Akui. Sorry. I can't. Fortunately, it's a bit late now for me to learn it. And then Alex Murkov. Are you happy, content with those delistings?
I am.
Lockie is nodding for all those audio listeners.
I forgot that this was an audio medium for a moment there. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Are there any of those that you would have maybe given an extra chance to? Just like a rookie list, one last shot, particularly those injury-prone 3?
I think with the context of, you talking about just how few list spots we have anyway, the answer's no for all of these. I think it's funny how I feel like we ended 2023 with a bit of like, okay, these 3 maybe, but it felt like if there was one more season like this, it was the end, and then they've all just gone and done it again. So it's always that thing, and people are saying, oh, this club's going to turn this guy into a superstar. This guy, yes, but it's just been too long now for us, and it's too.
Yeah, I think Jack Martin's the one that you hear Geelong's interested, and you start to go, oh, I don't want him to go there because you'll make him into a star. And we know when he's fit and healthy, he's a gun footballer. We haven't been able to see that, and I don't know how many more years you can progress with players that you just hope they're fit. And then when they're not, you get so frustrated, and it's like, can we delist him right now? I'm sick of it. And we just need just a breath of fresh air on this list. And I think it's time to move all of those. Now, told to explore their options. This is the juicy part. Matt Kennedy, who's contracted, and then Matt Owies, who is out of contract, and Lewis Young, who is also contracted. How did you react to the news of these 3? And where are you kind of sitting in the camp of happy to see them go, want to keep them, hate the decision? Because it's been kind of a polarizing, I guess, feelings towards these 3, or at least 2 of them probably.
Yeah. But don't you think it's polarizing too that there's been discussion about like, how do these conversations actually play out?
Yeah.
Because there's realistic scenarios where both of them do stay, and it's hard to know exactly how it was worded. You take it away first, but I do have some thoughts.
Yeah, look, we'll definitely go probably more in depth next week and the week after assessing this. I understand the reasons for them. I think Owies is the one that I am more shocked on, but I understand just list spot wise. It just annoys me that what you spoke on earlier, he's fit all the time, performs every time. And we're unfortunately now going to go into a season with Motlop, who's still an unknown, had a really good season last year, kicked I think I said like 24 goals or something. You expect him to go a bit further with that and kick, the 33 that always can if fit and healthy, plus the ceiling, plus he at his best chases a little bit more, applies more tackle pressure. So I can understand that. Durden, never healthy, but there's some ceiling there. The issue is probably Fantasia, and we've brought in this guy on 2 years. Now we're like, oh, God, it should have just been 1, if anything.
Yeah.
If you had to keep 1, you'd be wanting to keep Owies over Fantasia. I just think it's you put yourself in a bad list spot where you're now having to get rid of a guy. You're not going to get much in for him because he's out of contract. You've got no leverage. And he's still probably might not be best 22 for me, considering Zach Williams is now in that forward line.
I know.
You want games into Ashton Moyer, so I can understand why out of all of those, if you're looking at the pros and cons, apart from Fantasia, there's still reasons to move him on over others. But it just feels baffling to move on. Like, what was he, like our 3rd or something highest goal scorer, at least in the forward line? Like, it feels weird to move him on. Yeah. How do you see it?
But so do you, as a betting man, which you absolutely are, you'd bet that all 3 of them won't be there next season?
Yes. If anyone, I ideally, yes. I don't know if anyone would want Lewis Young and on the money he's on. Like, 'cause I think he'd be on not heaps of coin, but more than like a rookie wage, which is what you'd probably want to take him on. Kennedy would be the one because he's contracted. There's more of a chance to stay. There is a 0% chance for me that Owies is on our list next year. That's where I see it. Off, no actual information, just my own gut feel.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on pretty much all your points there. The Kennedy one, there's so many comments you could make or similarities that you could draw even with the 2. Like we said, we didn't have Kennedy best 22 at the start of the year. And what's his position for round 1 next year?
No, and as much as I'd like to keep him, great depth option. He's a chance to still break into your best team there. If there's an injury, he comes straight in, can play a multitude of positions. I've been a long, I guess, detractor of Kennedy, and this is probably where I'm going to go the hardest on him in the sense that when I heard this break, a part of me went, "Ooh, I like this." In the sense of let's actually make a tougher list call that I don't kind of think is a tough list call. We've got not many list spots and we need to bring talent in. Why keep a guy that you've got on your list already? That's where I sit with it. We've got Cripps, we've got Hewitt to play his role. So he's already behind them in the pecking order. Yep. You don't want him in the midfield with those two. Okay. Cooper Lord's already got the ceiling over Kennedy. You've seen him be competent. It's a drop down, yes. But if it's between getting games into Cooper Lord or playing Matt Kennedy, I'm probably going to opt in. Let's blood in the youngster. So now he's almost kind of getting down the pecking order in that sense. Then, okay, he's versatile. This is where I'm going to be harsh. Okay, he can play in the forward line and he's fine. He can play in halfback, he's fine. But why not bring a player into the squad that's the area they excel at? Why are we having to shoehorn Matt Kennedy into these positions when, look, let's be brutally honest, halfback, you don't want to see him there.
No way.
How much this season, earlier in the year, were we saying, I'm sick of seeing him as that marking third target. He's not good at
100%.
it.
100%.
When there was no one else, it was fine. Once we're fit and healthy, I don't think he's right for that spot. And so where does he play? I think you're also bringing in, Ben Camporelli, who starts to kind of eat in. I don't think he's ready to play straight away, but that's another person eating into the midfield spots for the next few years. Do we need another midfielder that's not blessed with pace, that isn't nailed on best 22 with not amazing skills? I get why you're moving him on. I'd love to keep him for so many reasons. And there's just, if you can, it's his best season for the football club.
Yeah.
And he's that guy that you can make him have any role when you need to, and you kind of know you're getting a 7 out of 10 each and every time. And I think I said at one stage this season on Matt Kennedy, you'd love to have a team of Matt Kennedys, guys that just give you their best each and every week. So in that essence, it's sad to potentially lose him. But if we want to win a flag and we want to improve on the list next year, is moving on Matt Kennedy that big a move? I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I think it's a pretty simple move considering we've got the guys that can kind of replace him at least. What are you more the other? You'd prefer to keep him?
No, I'm not. I think you've made all the right points there, and I'm basically in complete agreement. If it turns out that he is going to be on the list next year, then
perfect.
Great.
Yeah,
sure.
But how much money can you spend on a guy that's not in the plans? And I guess that Vossi and co have shown when everyone's fit, he's not in this team. They don't back him for whatever reason.
And I mean, that's the thing as well, isn't it? This isn't a shock. This has been the narrative since before Voss started, that he's like, I don't see you in this midfield. You got to earn it. And evidently in their eyes, he hasn't. So,
and it'll depend who comes in. I think that's where I am almost looking at this, and I want to evaluate every move once the period is over.
Sure.
If we're moving on Matt Kennedy, but it means we can shore up an actual role that we need, like all of a sudden we've got a key forward depth, or we've got a small forward that we can bank on, we've got a half forward, we've got a key defender, something that we know we need, pace in the midfield, then perfect. Otherwise, keep him. But if it allows us to plug a hole in a position that Matt Kennedy's played this season, one of the many, with someone who specializes in that, that's their role, that's their one wood. I think it's a fine maneuver. And then Lewis Young surprises me because I think we lack key defensive depth before we delisted Dom and Marchbank.
Yes.
If Nick Haynes comes in, okay, that's Marchbank replaced. You need someone young to come in to take in Dom's spot, like a youth player to develop. If you're then moving on Lewis Young, you need another ready-made player. But I thought we still needed another one on top. So now what we're bringing in Haynes a younger player and 2 other key defenders. Like it doesn't sit right with me moving on a guy in a already position of need. But if you can improve on Lewis Young, then I'm all for it because I don't think he's exceptional. He's fine.
Yep. No, I share the sentiment with those two. Do you have any comments on murmurings around players potentially being in different positions next year?
Just on this topic a bit. What have you heard?
Well, there was the Mitch McGovern chatter,
and
then potentially the guy that wears number 1 playing down back.
The Jack Silvani, both I find strange. Jack Silvani, I don't like him down back. I just think it's stupid, personally. But he can take a mark, great. He's not that strong. That's an issue. He's not a good user by foot. So why would you want a worse kick in defense when we need better kicks and better decision making? And the one glaring hole we kind of have right now is a marking third tall forward that can pinch hit in the ruck. Why experiment with that? It feels like the most obvious move next season is Jack Silvani into the forward line, helps with Harry as that second ruck. That feels like the most obvious thing. McGovern going forward, delist him if you want to do that. Like, it's actually something that makes me angry.
Interesting. Wow, okay.
The 3-headed monster didn't work under David Teague. Why do you think it's going to work now? Again, the clear option would be Kemp forward. Why would you entertain again moving one of your better intercept markers, best users of the footy when we can't move the football anyway? And we don't have anyone else in our backline that can replace Mitch McGovern. It just, key defense is an issue. Why are we moving them out? I don't know what Dan Gorringe is thinking or where he's heard that. And it worries me if that's true.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's going to be
I've gone hot, Loggy.
No, I like it. As you should.
Yeah. And then last thing, some potential ins. Nick Haynes, quick thoughts, because we probably won't touch on him a lot until the trade preview. Is he someone that you'd like us to bring in?
I guess on the whole, yes. I'm not super in touch with how his form has been over the last year or so. I know he's been out of the team, but I like that he is a leader, experienced head. And if, like you said before, if it's him or Marchbank, I'd rather have him. That's
my opinion as well. It's okay. Yeah, he's 33. He's more an intercept defender than a lockdown. So maybe not the biggest need. But if he replaces, Sam Durden or Marchbank as a depth play, a guy who can come in if you need him, knowing Mitch McGovern's injury issues, do they truly trust Kemp in that role as well? Fine, bring him in as depth. If we're bringing him in as the only key position starter, round 1 next year, that's where I'd start to be concerned. Our priority should be lockdown over interceptor.
I agree.
And banking on a 33-year-old whose best football was like 4 years ago very much concerns me if that's our only option this offseason. I'd be very concerned. But
I'm hoping
in isolation, it's a shrewd move for nothing. I think it's good. Just bring in more. The other main one, Dan Houston, polarizing. What do you think?
Yeah. And this is hard for me. Like, I want to make caveats about all the things that you've said, like the list size, things like salary and all those kind of things. I think the bottom line for me is he is probably in my top 5 to 10 players that don't play for Carlton that I like.
I agree.
Watching. I've just always been very fond of him, and he's an all-Australian halfback. He's going to make our team better, so I want to bring in players that make our team better.
I'm not convinced. And that's strange because I agree with you. One of my favorite non-Carlton players. I don't know if I've just been burnt by us spending big on halfback flankers. And that is what's holding this back, in my opinion. Is halfback a need right now for us? Yeah, we need someone who can move the ball, be a bit more dynamic in their movement. Is that Dan Houston? Maybe.
I know, maybe.
And the hard thing is like, well, who else? Let's say every player is available. who's better than Dan Houston? And I'm like, I don't know, but I almost want a player who's a little bit more Adam Sard, runs with the ball, leg speed. And how many teams in the AFL that have won premierships over the last 10 years have spent big to bring in a halfback flanker? Has any? Now, maybe I need to do the research on this and come back to you on it. I just don't think halfback
think about that.
Now is a position that you should be giving up 1, potentially 2 first-round picks for. When every other team in the competition find a draft a midfielder, you can play halfback. Finds a, Massimo D'Ambrosio and chucks him on the halfback and sorts it out. Feels like every other club's able to just find a guy with a skill set, bring him in, role player. All last season, it was, we need to stop bringing in superstars, find these role players. All of a sudden, one bad end to a season, and it to me, I'm worried we're looking at that next. Oh, Vossi's trying to, one last year on the contract, going, here we go. Okay, I need the player. And Dan Houston's that guy, whether it pick-wise and salary hurts us in other positions that I think are maybe more needs, when you could bring in, like, I hope this makes sense, the more Moneyball option of you can get elements of Dan Houston for cheaper that will have a similar net result.
Yeah, I understand that.
For what you're having to give up. I don't think the improvement we would get with Dan Houston in our backline would be enough to be what we're having to give up for him.
Yep.
Considering we're not a perfect team right now. That's my concern.
It's incredibly valid. And that's the nuance around this conversation that is kind of hypothetical now, until if a deal gets done or it doesn't get done and we hear what the deal would have been, then we have more clarity. The part that I'm addressing more is people that don't think that slotting him in to our half backline makes our backline better, which I firmly disagree with.
Oh, it definitely makes it better. But when structure's also an issue, oh, cool, now we've just got Dan Houston kicking it long down the line instead of Jordan Boyd. Like, is that 100%. The best thing? Do you think he is someone that can play midfield? That's another discussion that's been thrown around with Dan Houston. Or are you triggered like me and go, oh, God, I've heard this one before?
That's way more triggering of a thought. That's like
because they just say, oh, well, Port's midfield's really strong. And I go, well, our midfield's also strong. And if you couldn't break into that, there's a reason. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be banking on Dan Houston being our midfield option. I don't think that is an ideal scenario. And then it comes to, what are we giving up for him? If it's a first-round pick and a second, okay, I can hear that a little bit more. If it's definitely 2 first-rounders, no chance. I think it's the opportunity cost. This is a really good draft. The top part of it is really, really good. And I think we need to keep pick 11, knowing we're also getting Ben Camperelli in. I think pick 11's vital for us. So that means we're giving up a future pick if Port even entertain that, knowing he's contracted. That'd be asking that. If I'm Port, I'm saying it's pick 11 minimum, or don't even call me. Like, call me if you've got something different. I'm not answering the phone. The issue if we give up a future pick, and this is getting into those Collingwood areas right now, is well, okay, let's go all the hypotheticals of players that could be available next year that you need first round picks for, knowing we're getting the future picks expanded next season. Petrarca comes back up and you may be looking at him. You can't probably get him if you don't have a first rounder next year.
Yep.
The big player that everyone wants is Big Alir from GWS, knowing that they've got 3 key defenders already signed to long-term deals. He's the 4th. He can't get a game. He's out of contract at the end of next year. He said so far he won't move this season, but who knows next year. You got to have some first to maneuver then. Puts us in a harder position. And then even a guy like Sam De Koning, who's been thrown around, Geelong adamant they won't trade him this year, out of contract next year. I don't want to be sitting here, end of season 2025, going, fuck, well, I'd rather Alir, Petrarca, or De Koning, but we brought in Dan Houston, so we don't have that first, I guess. And maybe that's just stupid to think that, because we don't know if any of those players want to move. And then you could end up with none at all. And then you're sitting here going, well, we haven't brought in any talent. But I'm happy to be convinced on Dan Houston. I don't think it's the perfect move there's something inside me that is very apprehensive about it all. And I want to be excited. I love Dan.
As I asked on the delistings, if you had to bet, do you think he will be there next year?
I think he will, but
I don't.
I don't necessarily want it.
I would bet that he will not be.
But yeah, we're going to dive into this conversation a lot more over the next 2 weeks. So there's still plenty of content from us on YouTube, on wherever you listen to your podcast. List analysis will be next week. That is where we go through what's our best 22, what's the depth chart, all the out-of-contract players, are we re-signing them, looking at the ins and outs, really, of the list. How many list spots do we have? What are our list needs? Maybe throw out some targets. And then the week after that, we'll be doing the real trade preview. This is the spicy part of the season. When your year hasn't ended in the greatest way, let us know your thoughts on everything we covered, all the awards. If you've got any questions you want us to answer, chuck them in the comments. We'll be sure to continue the discussion. Oh, Lockie, are you feeling any more optimistic another week on after the season has finished?
I definitely am. I am putting my flag in that I think we're going all the way next year.
Absolutely. And hopefully next time we chat, big old Paddy Cripps is a dual Brownlow medalist. Let's put that out in the universe. But that is going to wrap this episode up. Thanks for all the support throughout this season from all those that have listened and watched. Appreciate it a lot. As I said, we're not going anywhere. We will be back next week. List analysis. Up the bloody baggers. See you guys next time.